thank you for coming over here. I'm David Sylvester. This is my first time at MAGFest, and I thought thanks. And thought since, well, this year's MAGFest is like Star Fox theme, I got really hyped. Oh boy, I can finally tell you all educate you guys on Star Fox music, because it's like Star Fox, yeah, let's go. It's been a franchise near and dear to my heart for a couple of years, and I've always said on message boards online, I can talk for hours and hours and hours about Star Fox music. We'll now have 50 minutes, and I gotta get an entire franchise to go through, so let's get cracking. We'll be moving fast, so buckle your seatbelts, start your G diffusers, and we're going. Alright, so a little bit about myself. I'm David. As I told you, I'm a mechanical engineer studying at Rochester Institute of Technology. I also do music type things. I've been playing multiple instruments, including Mr. Voice. That's piano. Cool. Alright, we got piano. This will be great. So, as I was saying, I play instruments. I play this recorded voice since 3rd grade. Been playing piano a lot, had like a year or two of lessons, and then I mostly self-taught myself through playing video game music and stuff, and also by doing other music stuff, including my YouTube channel, DS Music. Don't know if any of you've heard about it. I do piano video game covers and stuff. Been working on it for like 2 or 3 years, and through it I've been able to go through video game music, try to see the music theory behind them, perform them, get to know other YouTube VGM musicians, and just develop as a musician through that. I've also played several Star Fox covers on my channel, including some of my first ones were just me taking my laptop camcorder and recording me on a piano playing Star Fox music. So yeah, I've been noodling around with the music theory and checking it out, and so this is what the panel today will be about. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, that'd be great. I'd love you all for that. Anyway, so my background on the topic, I played Star Fox 64 a lot on an N64 back when I was a kid, even though I kind of sucked at playing video games at the time, so I had my dad play through Star Fox 64, and my mind was blown, like, at the Andros battle. You're fighting a floating head in space. That's kind of creepy, but still super cool. And so in middle school, I played more Smash Bros. Brawl, which has, like, the most Star Fox reps besides Ultimate, and it's like, whoa, you have Fox, Wolf, and Falco. You have a great music selection, including Space Battleground. Whoa, this is an epic song. I'll get to that song in a moment. How is this epic sort of a song in Star Fox, and why did I not know about it? So I wanted to look more into that. And then in high school, when I was thoroughly becoming a Star Fox junkie, Star Fox Zero came out, and I thoroughly looked at the music for that sort of stuff, and I was like, this is really cool. I want to check out this music more. And so now, after my years of extensive research, it's time to bring this panel to you guys. So, a little introduction on the general basis of music in Star Fox. So, Star Fox in a whole has been known as Nintendo's romping ground for testing out new techniques in hardware and in gameplay and story, and in general just being a wacky space fighter which shows the best of what Nintendo can do with their hardware. And this is reflected in the music, as also the music develops as the technology develops through the use of instrumentation, different types of instruments to convey the mood and feel, or through the compositional techniques they use in order to build the story through each game. So now we're going to start off with the original trilogy. I'm going to break this up into 2 trilogies and then a little thing at the end. The original trilogy here is kind of like the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. You know, it's the good 3 ones that everyone loves, everyone knows the music from, and everyone refers back to as the best in the franchise. So, starting off with Star Fox SNES, which was originally it was supposed to be made for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but then Argonaut, the people who are making the game with Nintendo, was like, okay, look, you want 3D polygons. The NES is not really gonna do that very well. Why don't we move it over to the Super Nintendo and make this Super Effects chip thing? And so they did, and they had a lot of more hardware capabilities with that, along with the use of the Super Effects chip, which you can render mind-boggling 3D polygons. Whoa, realism. And also you got to use the S-SMP sound chip, which had 8 channels rather than 4 of the NES, and also had the ability to use modulation and reverb and all sorts of cool futuristic things to make this futuristic game. And since this game was so new by itself already, Miyamoto was thinking, alright, so this is a new futuristic space fighter, let's make it even newer by instead of having generic like space marines like in general space games have had, why don't we have anthropomorphic space creatures, which are all happen to be caricatures of the dev staff of the game at the time. And so we have the Star Fox crew being born on their first console game, which was an astounding success for the time. Now let's look at how the music reflects that. So in the first game, in order to reflect their use of new technology in the futuristic scene of the game, they use a more experimental and hybrid sort of instrumentation and orchestration throughout the game, such as using tech synths and whatnot, along with orchestral samples in order to build upon the futuristic tone and story. Let's look at a few examples of instrumentation. Here's a Space Armada, which you might recognize from Smash Bros. So you're flying through space, you're shooting your lasers at the big bad guy spaceships. It's great, it's fun, it's space opera-esque, Star Wars-esque. So you have your orchestral sounds performing a song and giving off the tone of the story. Then for a more synthesizer-based song, you have the controls music, which is completely synthesizer-based, as you are testing out the new hardware of the SNES and figuring out how the game works, and so you have the futuristic sounds and hardware reflected in this song. Then a classic, which everyone knows, the first level of the game, Corneria. Already you're going off strong with the synthesizers as you're seeing the beautiful 3D rendered polygons fighting off the Andros, Corneria. And then you have your orchestral synths coming in order to give the gameplay of fighting spaceships, space opera, and whatnot. Overall, general banger, great first level game. And yeah, so it gives off a great impression of the tone of the game as being a space opera in futuristic and showing off the new capabilities of the SNES. This is so great you have to play through. Alright, here we go. Another thing used in Star Fox SNES are some of the musical ideas that are used to develop the persona of the series. The major one, which you're going to hear a lot in this panel, is going to be a quiz at the end, so you better memorize this, is the heroic perfect fourth and perfect fifth used throughout the series. Now, what does that mean? Well, first let me just give a general example of how it sounds like. Here's a perfect fourth. And in perfect fifth, which is very similar sounding. So what do these mean? Well, the perfect fourth is a technique that's mainly associated with fanfare trumpets, like. And it is a technique that you hear a lot in sounds such as Star Wars. Kicking off that fanfare heroic intro, it's using the Superman theme. Also heroic, and also using the Metroid main theme. So it gives off that vibe of heroism and determination and going off to fight. And so this heroic perfect interval, let's just take a look at what an interval is real quick, just for some basic music theory knowledge. How many of you here have a basic knowledge of like sheet music or music theory or whatnot? Or how many of you went to the music theory 101 class with some Thing Arwing and Family Jewels and whatnot? It was good stuff. So here's some examples of intervals. Of course, you have a bass note, and you have the note you're going to. Like the minor second, it's one note away from the bass note. Major second is 2 notes away. So we have. So as you can see by the chart, your perfect fourth is 5 notes away from your bass note. And your perfect fifth is 7 notes away. And they're very similar in the way that if you have a perfect fifth, and you take the top note and move down an octave, you got a perfect fourth. And it has a very similar heroic sound to them. Now let's take a look at some examples with our nice little sheet music that I came up with for y'all. So let's look at the main theme real quick of the game. So you have your nice hold here. As you can see, the first jump into melody is a perfect fourth. Another one there. Tiffany's playing perfect fourths. Then you have this interchange between the melody and the harmony, which are all in perfect fourths. Then you kind of have your melody coming in. And even in this section with the soaring melody, you can see that you have extra perfect fourth going from your F to B flat, and your perfect fifth from B flat to F, from B flat to E flat, and so it's incorporated all along the soaring melody in order to give you a sense of the heroism of the game. And also memorize the look of this perfect fourth here, because you're going to be seeing that a lot in this panel. Alright, let's look at another example real quick, Space Armada, which we've gone through before. You have your perfect fifth there, your perfect fourth there, then it repeats a bit, get forward. And then I'll get to this section in a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, your trumpet blasts here are literally all just stacked perfect fourths all on top of each other. So as you're fighting the spaceships, you can see your perfect fourths are used to create tension, but in a heroic sort of way, which is all ties into the persona that the game was going for, of being a heroic space shooter, but also in a wacky and sort of in a positive way. Like you're thinking, yay, I'm fighting spaceships and I'm fighting with Star Fox. This is really cool. Alright, so that's what the series has developed itself into so far. Let's take a little stint into Star Fox 2, which was released for the SNES Classic recently, which I was really hyped about, because after I found out that the game was originally canceled, I was really hyped that they were able to release it again. So the game was canceled due to the fact that it was completed at the same time as the N64 was coming out, and so they didn't want this game to be outdated as soon as it was released by the new hardware, the N64. So it just got completely canceled, but since it was already in a completed state, they were able to put it again on the SNES Classic. And so this game, if you haven't played it, it's a combination of what made the original Star Fox so great, of the on-rail shooter, along with adding some extra color to the game through the use of multiple characters you can control with multiple vehicle stats for the different Arwings and whatnot, along with more strategy-based combat, whereas instead of in the original game you have a linear path going from each planet to the next, here you could take down the forces of Andros as they're coming toward Corneria while going to Andros in whatever path you please. So this added a nice little bit of color to the game and developed it from the original. In the same way, the music was very similar to the original, using the same SNES sounds, along with developing itself through the use of perfect intervals, but in a more colorful sort of way. So a quick look at the title theme to see how it's different, but how it's also similar to the main Star Fox theme. So at first it sounds really different, like it's not the soaring melody you had before, but you can see there's still the use of the perfect fifth from F to B flat, goes from F to B flat again. Okay, sure. Alright. Cool. So as you can see, there's some interplay between the melody and the harmony, where the harmony note is a perfect fourth away from the melody in like almost every single one of the chords, except for like this one, but even in all these chords you have the perfect fourth, along with the bass line is playing a perfect fourth in the bottom. And then here for this chord, you have a perfect fourth between the two harmony notes, but if you take these harmony notes, move them up an octave, you can see it's literally a chord just built upon perfect fourths. And along with that, you have some extra notes thrown in there to add some color to the main theme and give the chords some nice voicings. And so in this way, it builds upon the perfect fourth motif from the last game, along with adding some extra color. And unfortunately, in order to get through the entire game, I'm going to have to skip past Eladard. It's a 100% certified banger. You should definitely listen to it. I'm going to be uploading the PowerPoint and the MuseScore file to my YouTube channel after MAGFest, so if you want to take a look at some of the examples and follow along and look at my notes along with it, do that. Now let's move to the poster child of the franchise. We have Star Fox 1, Star Fox 2, and then Star Fox 64. 4. Counting works, I swear. So, even though this game was kind of like, oh, it's a great new game for the N64, it's kind of just a reboot of Star Fox 1. It has the same storyline. You're going to defeat Andros. You have the same characters, and you have the same on-rails gameplay, but it also introduced some new when it transitioned to the N64, it was introduced to the new hardware, which is able to render more in-depth 3D graphics, along with better hardware, and the introduction of the Rumble Pack, which is a new feature that was released specifically for Star Fox 64. And to date, Star Fox 64 has been the best game in the entire franchise, as far as selling points go. Similarly, the music developed on the themes used in Star Fox 1, but it also added a new take to it. The composer for the Star Fox 64 soundtrack was none other than legendary Koji Kondo himself, who worked on the Mario soundtracks, and he also worked on the sound effects for the original Star Fox, which shows he had a bit of an idea of what was going on in this franchise, and so he wanted to bring his own ideas to the table. Whereas the other games were all based on, oh, look at this new technology and futuristic hardware, we have a hybrid instrumentation. Instrumentation for Star Fox 64 was all orchestral based. Now, this was in order to, since the N64 was able to render more realistic graphics and also play more realistic sounds, Koji Kondo wanted to go for a sound that was reminiscent of a more realistic storyline, a more realistic game, by having realistic orchestral samples develop upon the story. So even though there's no synthesizers to be found, you can still see the musical motifs of the perfect fourth going forward in this one, along with some rhythmic motifs that will be seen later in the series, along with the introduction of modes in order to expand upon the perfect fourth. Now, what is a mode? Let me show it real quick. They brought it up really quick in the Music Theory 101 panel. So let's say we have a C major scale. Right. Now, let's say we did the same C major scale, but we started on a different note, like D, which is the D Dorian scale that is shown here. It's the same notes as C major. It's based on C major, but it starts on D, which is different from the actual D major scale, which sounds like in D Dorian. In D Dorian, we have an F natural rather than the F sharp of the D major scale, and we have a C natural rather than the C natural of the D major scale. So basically, each of these modes tell you what scale the mode is based on. Like D Dorian is D based on C, E Phrygian is E based on C, and so on and so forth. So if we look at all the modes for C major, you can sort of see, if it's clear enough, that each mode has a different set of flats and sharps added to the normal C major scale, but they're all based on other different scales. So like the C Dorian mode, where we have the flat 3 and the flat 7, we have our E flat and our B flat instead of our E natural and B natural. In Star Fox 64 soundtrack, they make use of the G Mixolydian scale, which has a flat 7th note. So it sounds like that being the interesting note in question. Now, how does this F natural instead of an F sharp affect what you can do with it? Well, if we try to make some chords based on the G Mixolydian scale, let's start on G. If we go up a perfect fourth, you have G and C. If you go up another perfect fourth, you go to the F natural. Whereas if you're in normal G major, you would go from C to F sharp, and it would sound like. So you can build upon the use of the perfect fourth by having that flat 4 in there, a flat 7. And then you can also create a chord off of A. So that can lead to some very interesting melodic and harmonic interplay. So the most known example is the main theme of Star Fox 64, which is a very recognizable classic. Oh, Eldar, good stuff. So let's just listen to it real quick. So you already perfect fourth being used in harmonies. And we get here, perfect fourth. You see the F natural being used for Mixolydian mode. So as you can see, the harmony of the main melodic line goes from A, which is the perfect fourth away from D, A to B to C, and then we have our melodic line going from D to E, and instead of an F sharp, the mixolydian mode makes this F natural, which is exactly a perfect fourth away from C, which makes the melodic interplay between the melody and the harmony just work better. And you also have some extra B notes and whatnot for some extra color to the theme. And that is used a lot throughout the soundtrack in order to help develop the motif of the perfect fourth that was introduced within the original game. Alright, so... Oh, also, of course, you have the rhythm. I was talking about the rhythmic motif. You hear the 16th note, 8th note, and 2/16th notes, which is prominent in a lot of future games in the franchise. That's just another interesting thing Koji Kondo put in there and it's used a lot. So I was going to go into some other modes, including Phrygian, which has a flat 2 in it. Which is used throughout the soundtrack to give a more tense, action-packed feel, but I don't have time to get into that right now. So for now, we're just going to show... I'll just show that Koji Kondo was able to expand upon the original soundtrack while also incorporating some new elements which were very well based off the original soundtrack in order to make a reboot that didn't exactly seem like a reboot, but it seemed like its own good game in its own sense, and as such it was able to have a very memorable soundtrack for a very memorable game. Alright, it's time to go through the awkward growth phase of Star Fox. The sequels, which are like the prequels of Star Wars, as in they tried to build the universe, but in the end they're just regarded as those awkward ones, which no one really knows what's going on. Alright, so, Star Fox Adventures. This was released as a collaboration between Rareware and Nintendo, and as in collaboration, I mean, Rare had an idea for a game called Dinosaur Planet, and then Miyamoto is just like, hey, you have some animals in your game, we have animals in Star Fox, let's just yeet our property into yours, and we have a Star Fox game, right? It'll be great, we swear. So, like, it made the jump from N64 to GameCube as the new Star Fox title, and with the better hardware aspects of the GameCube, we can render more detailed 3D models and have better textures, and overall just make the game seem like a better place to explore. And so, this game was more based on, like, Rare sort of formula of exploration and puzzles and whatnot, rather than, even though it had a few Arwing sessions, it was mostly seen as a Zelda clone in a way due to the explorative nature of it. And while it was received well, because even though it wasn't really a Star Fox game, it's still a good game in its own right. It looked nice, it played well, had good music, but it was just very divisive in the Star Fox community, because some people are like, oh yeah, it has Star Fox in it, and it's a good game, this is a good Star Fox game. While other people are like, it's not a Star Fox game, you're not firing your lasers in space. So, as such, the music is also very good music, but it uses some techniques to make it stray from Star Fox music. This game's soundtrack was composed by another legendary composer, David Wise, who worked on much of the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack, and it has a lot of his influence upon it. A lot of the instrumentation is more, rather than military sounding with your snares and cymbals and whatnot, it has more ethnic sort of percussion and ethnic scales using musical techniques for the game in order to build as a world-building tool, so that you'll have an incentive to listen to the nice music while exploring the world around you. And so, since this game was transitioning to a new console and showing how realistic a game can be visually, this is reflected in the music, which has a more realistic, homey sense to it. So let's look at some instrumentation real quick. Going through the original Area 6 music from Star Fox 64, you can hear already in the background, you have your percussion, which is more snare drums, crash cymbals, timpanis, more space opera-esque music. Whereas in Star Fox Adventures, it's the same melody, the same harmony, basically staying instruments playing it. In the background you hear more percussion like taikos, bongos, and throughout the soundtrack you hear a lot of those more command hit instruments rather than the orchestral sounds of Star Fox 64. Alright, and that helped to build the tone of the game as it makes you more want to explore the environment around you and the dinos and jungles and stuff rather than action-packed space shooters. Okay, let's just look quickly at some of the compositional techniques used. We have the use of the natural minor scale, which sounds like and the GYPSY minor scale, which has the extra F sharp and B natural to give it some extra points of inflection. vibe, more earthy vibe, and which matches the tone of the game. So a quick example of this in use is Krasoa Palace, which is one of the first, I think it's one of the first levels. Oh, this is part of the opening. You see Perfect Force everywhere. Look at it, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. Krasoa Palace, which is an exploration level. Again, you can hear the percussion in the background, it's more ethnic sounding. You can hear the harp playing natural minor, gives it a more mystical, ancient feel. It goes to this section. You hear the natural coming in, and all the other accidentals. Gives it a more ethnic feel, and gives the world building aspect of it. And this is present throughout a lot of the game, and so as such, the soundtrack isn't bad, it's just the elements used in it don't make it sound as much as the previous Star Fox games and gives it a vibe that's uniquely different from them. Alright, now it's time to go into a doozy of a game, Star Fox Assault, which is very near and dear to my heart, but it was just, sadly, it's just an game overall, and I'll show you why. So, after the divisive feedback of Star Fox Adventures, this was supposed to be more of a return to form, as you have ships in space and whatnot, and nicely rendered ships on the GameCube, and it's epic and whatnot. You have more space opera-esque elements of a more developed story that's actually in space, and you have beautiful visual style and art style that I absolutely love. So, while there was no real hardware changes, it was still made on the GameCube, the story and gameplay changes affected the music tremendously. You have several classic elements in this game, such as the OST. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you haven't heard the Star Fox Assault soundtrack, it's really good because a lot of it is recorded with a live orchestra where they recorded classic Star Fox 64 tunes, but with a live orchestra, and I just have a thing for orchestras, so it's really, really good, at least to me. And along with that, they also recorded a few original tunes in order to help the game expand from its previous iterations. So you have classic OST elements, you have a story of being in space, you have the Arwings come back for a lot more of the game, you have the Landmaster coming back, and you have multiplayer mode, which is, to me at least, is probably the best multiplayer game on the GameCube, even better than Melee. It's great. I'm a dedicated Slippy main myself, you better watch your back. However, even though this game seemed like, oh, this is Star Fox again, woot, it happened to have a couple downsides, such as new elements as on-foot missions and new weapon systems where you got to shoot things and whatnot a lot, and it's just really wonky, really bad controls. Like, there's literally parts where you have to climb staircases, you have to do 90-degree turns, and you can only turn, like, every 5 seconds. So it's just kind of really, you're just kind of there to suffer as you're trying to get through these missions sometimes. And so that, along with its poor implementation and half-baked ideas, such as a very linear story progression, like not linear as in you go from planet to planet. No, you literally have one set of missions that you can do the entire time. And it's also a very short set of missions. Like Star Fox in itself is supposed to be like 2 hours or less to play through, but then you have a bunch of options for replayability. This game had very little replayability besides just having harder modes to get like icons which you can use to get achievements. Yay. And also along with that was the wonky foot controls and little replayability. It was just very divisive in the community as well for not being as well implemented of a Star Fox game. Oh, I also forgot to mention that also the story ideas were not as well made as they could have been. Some of the plot was not really well, and the tone of the story was a bit darker than a normal Star Fox game was, which kind of turned off fans. Like, oh, we want a zany space shooter, not like something sad and Halo-esque. So I'll get to that in a moment. So how does the music reflect the game? Anyway, we have the instrumentation, which is the live orchestra, and some hybrid remixes for the versus songs, and along with the return of the heroic perfect interval for the original pieces in order to develop the game. Let's look at some orchestration just really quickly. Let's look at Space Battleground, which is, you can probably hear from Smash. First level of the game, you're going off, fighting space, you hear this epic orchestra fight, exciting you on. Great, you're gonna play Star Fox. It's just a great tune overall, and the orchestra really lends to the vibe of epicness and space opera that goes along. I'll sadly have to skip Star Wolf, but it's a great tune. Star Wolf doesn't want to get skipped. So perfect fourth. How is a perfect fourth used in this game? This is a very interesting subject that I've loved looking into. So let's look at the title theme. Whereas in the previous game, you've seen the perfect fourth iterated through harmonic and melodic interplay, or through use sparsely throughout the melody, here it comes back in a very prominent fashion. You can see there's perfect fourths literally all over the place. Look, there's a perfect fourth there, and there, and there, there, and there, and there, and then you have your perfect fifths and the clarinets right there. That's the title screen music, and as you can see, rather than trying to nudge it into the soundtrack in more cultured way, they just kind of shove it at you, like, here, look, perfect fourths, this is going to be a heroic game. Yippee. So you'll see how this is developed throughout the game in a bit. Let's skip past this, go to Heroes of Old, which is actually probably my favorite track in the entire soundtrack, which is really sad because it's not actually in the soundtrack. It's only used in cutscenes and doesn't get its own track that you can listen to until like the next game, Star Fox Command, where they come back with this MIDI orchestrated version, which is kind of sad. This just sounds really good. So the best I could get for an audio file of this was off of some YouTube video where a person did a pretty good job of taking out the vocals and like voice lines in it and tried to isolate the orchestra. So let's take a listen real quick. So you can see is the perfect fourth being played with French horn, and by the trumpet. So as you can see, you have your perfect fourths all over the place. You have your strings grinding out a really tense, dramatic harmony. But rather than this doesn't sound exactly like the perfect fourth through the rest of the game. You have your opening, which is upbeat and heroic, whereas this one you have the somber French horns. It's in a minor key, making it sound a bit more somber. You have the tense, dark strings, and it sounds more of a heroic, as in you gotta sacrifice yourself for the greater good, rather than you're determined to go on. It's like it has a much darker vibe. And which makes sense with where it goes in the story. This music happens as you're going to the final boss homeworld, and there's going to be a lot of army people who are going to die. This music happens as Peppy Hare, the guy who tells you to do a barrel roll in Star Fox 64, he's going to kill himself in order to get you to the final boss. Like, holy crap, where did the series go? It's just super dark and evil and malevolent. It's just, I mean, I love the vibe, and it gives a great vibe with it, but it just seems really different than the tone the series has been going for entire time, which to some people is good. Some people like this, like me. Other people are like, this isn't really Star Fox. This is more like Halo or Mass Effect or any other generic space opera thing, which the series hasn't wanted to do. So personally, this is my favorite tune in the entire Star Fox soundtrack, probably of the entire series. I even made a remix of it at one point where I tried to get a whole choir to like have a vocal remix of this, but I never got a choir along with this. So if anyone has a spare choir, I have sheet music in the backing track. If you want to. Yeah, but that's the sad story of Star Fox Assault. A game that tried to be new and just happened to be half-baked. Anyway, let's get back to the presentation. So then we get to the end of the sequel trilogy, Star Fox Command. So, after the poor reception of Star Fox Assault, Nintendo wanted even more return to form of the original Star Fox games, and so we have only flying missions, along with some gameplay incorporated from Star Fox 2, including a strategy-based aspect, along with multiple characters that you can use with different stats and whatnot. And these multiple characters were an extremely important facet of the game, as the actions you do throughout the game affected what ending you get, and there were multiple different wacky endings ranging from really depressing Fox and Falco go off to race in F-Zero to normal endings like you save the galaxy, yippee. But a lot of these endings are just like some people thought this game was fine, like, oh, it's Star Fox, it's a Star Fox game, you fly Arwing, yippee. Other people are like, who put these fanfic.net writers in my Star Fox game? What? This is fine. So, as such, the music reflects this diverse story aspect of the gameplay more than the hardware, as this game was released on the Nintendo DS, which is kind of a downgrade from the GameCube. Whereas you have some new gyro controls you can use, they were an optional part of the gameplay, so more of the music was focused on the the story changes. So you have a lot of different compositional techniques being used, such as different styles for characters, themes, references to previous games, and Easter eggs in order to try to tie itself back into the franchise, along with some darker takes on classic songs. But in the end, to me, it just seems like a weird attempt to mash together a bunch of really weird endings, and so, as such, the music seems sometimes to be an incoherent jumble of different types of themes. So let's look at it really quick. I'll just get through the examples. Into Amanda, Slippy's girlfriend. What do you think this is going to say? Yeah, you can tell it's Slippy looking to say, it's corny enough to song. Skip over Panther, go to Crystal, which is a... Oh, I haven't brought up Crystal yet. Crystal is the character they shoehorned into the franchise from Star Fox Adventures, which is supposed to be Fox's romantic interest, but it's just really weird and complicated, and the music reflects that too. It's very dramatic sounding, it's very like a dance, but it's like it basically is a soap opera. You have these weird character interactions that you never think you'd see in any other Star Fox game, and so the musical styles reflect that. We'll skip over the random Easter eggs and stuff and go to the darker arrangement. This is one of the key parts of the Star Fox Command soundtrack that differentiates it. So I'm going to show you a few examples of some songs, these 3 songs here, which are all based off of the Mission Accomplished theme from Star Fox 64, which goes like just remember that as we listen to these examples real quick. So first we're going to go to Welcome to Star Fox Command, the opening song, and it sounds like this. So yeah, you can hear the mission accomplished in there. It's not exactly minor, it's this scale called the whole tone scale, which is all based on major seconds, so it goes like... And it sounds really weird and eerie, so that combined with the Mission Accomplished theme seems like this is gonna be an interesting Star Fox game, to say the least. Now let's look at this song, which, just to point out a few things at the start, this song is in G major, so you expect G, D, B natural, and G on the bass, but the bass note isn't G, it's A. So you're gonna wonder, where does it resolve back to G? So here's Mission Accomplished in G major. Then when it resolves to G minor, like that. And so yeah, you have this more darker take on Mission Accomplished. It sounds sadder in a way. Did you really complete the mission the way it was intended? Are you gonna get a good ending out of this? Is it gonna... It just sounds really weird and off-putting, since it's in minor, rather than the normal happy, upbeat G major of Mission Accomplished. And the last song we're gonna get to is Peace for the Galaxy, which is the ending song, which plays for every single ending, and it's a very interesting. So let's look. So you get some nice melancholic chords. You see your perfect force coming in. Mission accomplished. And then this comes in. You get these big, thick, juicy, meaty chords that are all sad and melancholic sounding. Like, this is Mission Accomplished, why does this sound sad? And you get this throughout every ending, so like, I mean, sometimes it matches with happy endings, like, oh, we have a happy ending for the franchise. But other times, a lot of time, they're with bad endings. So you just feel like this is the end of the Star Fox group. They're all disbanding, they're going off on their own ways. This is sad, this is the end. And so these big, meaty chords just reflected so well. And that's the end of Star Fox. The end. Goodbye. Thanks for coming. But yeah, so as you can see, these arrangements, all on the same theme, help give the subtext of Mission Accomplished into different moods depending on the situation due to the compositional techniques that are used in each. It's like, okay, this is the end of the Star Fox franchise. Well, where's Nintendo going to go from here? None of the games in the sequel trilogy have really been received very well. It doesn't seem like they know what to do with Star Fox anymore. Where are they going to go with it? A MAGFest. There we go. Or we'll just shove it down your throats in a million different ways again. Hey, here's Star Fox 1, but in a new age. So So now we're gonna get to the reboots. Each of these games that have been made after Star Fox Command have basically been just reiterations on the same thing that's happened before. Really quick to Star Fox 64 3D. It's Star Fox 64, but on the 3DS with newer textures. Not really much up to it besides it's a collection of remastered games. Yeah, they did change a few lines, such as they changed Hey Watch It Einstein to Hey Watch It Genius, because we're not sure whether there's a furry equivalent of Einstein in the Star Fox universe. So just to improve the quality of life, they changed that, a few other things. So as such, since it's mostly just a remaster of Star Fox 64, a lot of the songs are remastered versions of the original soundtrack with more realistic orchestral samples, such as the opening theme, which in Star Fox 64 sounds like... And skip ahead a bit. So you can hear the sort of tinny N64 instruments playing there. So in the new remastered version we have some more realistic sounding strings, a nice, more lush anvil hit. Sounds slightly more realistic. You can also learn how to use the same exact compositional techniques, like the same harmonies, the same instruments, in order to preserve the quality of the original tune. So as such, this game reflected the remastered version of the game. So, now let's look at the newest game in the franchise, Star Fox Zero, which Nintendo's like, after we've been waiting 10 or so years since Star Fox Command for a new game, Nintendo's like, oh, we're gonna give you a new game, we swear, it's a reimagining. It's totally new. And it ended up all just kind of being... It was pretty good if you didn't mind the weird Wii U gamepad controls, which they tried to sell as their main marketing gimmick. It's like... Yeah, they wanted to do something good and try to make it new. And they also tried to have this new experimental technology with the Wii U gamepads. Like, oh look, you can move the gamepad as a cockpit and look at the screen at the same time. This is cool. This is totally not in the ending of the life cycle of the Wii U. And this is totally not something we should have done in the beginning of the Wii U in order to show what the Wii U can do. And so as such, people were like, why is this here? It's really hard to look at two screens at once. Why is this? Why? And so, I mean, the game had a lot of hype marketing going up to it. There was like, they brought back the puppets from Star Fox 1 and remastered them for advertising. They also had YouTube personalities that they flew over to New York in order to try out the game, and they even had an anime. Like, this was, I'm not an anime guy myself, but this is the one anime. I got straight home from tennis practice, went to the nearest computer, like, I'm gonna watch a Star Fox anime. This is gonna be great, and it'll be a great game. And it was okay. Like, a lot of it was a reboot of Star Fox 1. At this point, it's basically a reboot, of a remaster, of a reboot of Star Fox SNES, just with a few new twists and turns and added better gameplay and the weird Wii U gimmick added along. And such, the music also took a very similar route to it. It was basically a reboot of the original soundtrack with a lot of similar elements, even a lot of songs that are ripped straight from Star Fox 64 and put into this game. But it has a few new twists to it in the way that it uses its previous games, music titles, and also what sort of motifs it brings back in. So here are the music ideas used. A return of hybrid instrumentation, as we have the new Wii U gamepad control. This is experimental. So we have the experimental hybrid orchestration, we have remixes of previous songs, and we have musical Easter eggs, along with the return of the heroic post-Rick 4 treatment. I've been bugging into your head this entire time. So let's see, a few examples. I'll skip over Star Wolf again. So here's the original Boss B music from Star Fox 64. Section. Here we have the violins doing this. It's just a scale, I think. Now for the Star Fox Zero version, we have, of course, the more orchestral version. We have a choir, and then the section earlier. Oh shoot! Instead of the violins doing their scale, we have this is just such a good song. I love it. Alright, and Star Wolf it's also orchestrated a little differently to build upon the story. You can look at that later in the PowerPoint when I share it. Skip over to Easter eggs. It goes back to the Perfect Fourth. Well, Nintendo wanted this to be a new game and a sort of reimagining, so how are they going to expand upon the themes used in the previous game? Well, as we can see, the original trilogy had to use the Perfect Fourth in more subtle ways, whereas a game like Assault, which tried blatantly to be a new game, had the Perfect Fourth literally just stuck there in the main theme, which sounded nice in the context that it was used, especially with how it was changed depending on each situation with different compositional techniques. Now, how is Star Fox Zero going to use it in its theme? How is it going to incorporate it either well or over top? Well, as you can probably already see from the sheet music, you're going to be hearing it real soon. This is when you start the game, and you literally, look at that, it's a perfect fourth. Whoa, we haven't done this before. Yeah, hold down. So yeah, look at that, perfect fourth. You're literally not even hiding anywhere. It's just a French horn. It's playing a perfect fourth. Whoa, it's heroic, it's epic, it's whatnot. And now let's go to the main theme, which you probably already see it coming. What is it? Let's see. There you go, it's already there. It's like they're trying way too hard to make this sound new, but with that, while trying also way too at the same time to make this sound like the original games. Like an example I'll show you is the main theme, which goes like first 6 notes of that, whereas the first 6 notes of the Star Fox Assault title screen, which I showed you earlier, were whereas you have same exact thing, except in a different key. This is supposed to be new. It's supposed to be a reimagining. It's literally the same thing. I mean, it sounds nice. You have the orchestra playing and whatnot, but it's just kind of generic. You've heard this before in previous games. It's just an orchestral version that's upbeat and cheery and heroic, which is also nice because the vibe of the series is trying to reimagine the vibe of the series, which has been upbeat, heroic, wacky space fighting. So this orchestral version sounds upbeat. But in a way, just reusing the Perfect Fourth motif along with reusing the vibe of the previous game just makes it seem really recycled and generic. So yeah, that's basically what they based their game upon. Oh, it's new, we swear, even though almost everything is just rehashed from the previous games. While there are some good uses of the Perfect Fourth, especially when it comes back in, let's bring this example up real quick. I think I have some time. In Return to Corneria, which is the song I play, is when you have to come back to Corneria a second time in order to save it from the weird monkey robot thing. It's still recycled, but like they tried. It sounds cool. It's got a nice clap before it. Sounds cool. It's a song that I play every time I go to Corneria on Smash Ultimate. Like, we are listening to Return to Corneria. Anyway, so a few concluding remarks real quick. I didn't get as much time to look through the Star Fox Guard and Starlink Battle for Atlas soundtracks. Or Star Fox Guard is like it's the Five Nights at Freddy's clone, but with Star Fox. So it's mostly electronic based music. It has some nice melodic material I didn't get to look at. And then Starlink, which is the game no one would know existed if it didn't have Star Fox in it. Look at that. We have nicely rendered fur and new Arwings. It's cool. Buy our game and our toys. So yeah, it has some remixes in it, and this is great. I mean, that was really cool. I thought it was, but it wasn't really a cash grab as much as Starlink was. Like Bayonetta 2 was like a nice little reference. You have the as long as you have the Arwing, you have the nice suit, and it was a cool bit of gameplay. But it was not the selling point for Bayonetta 2. Whereas this, no one would have known this existed if they didn't announce that there was Star Fox in it at E3. So Now let's bring up the last points I want to bring up in this presentation. So, as I said in the beginning, Star Fox 64 is meant to be, it's meant to be a more of an experimental franchise for Nintendo, showcasing its new developments in hardware and story. And as such, the original series was able to do that very well. But then when the sequel series tried to expand upon that in really interesting ways that didn't really vibe with the rest of the franchise, people didn't really see them as well as the original. And as such, the music reflects that, as since each of the games are either trying too much to pander to fan nostalgia by ripping things from the previous games, or trying to be too different but doing it in not as well of a way. In similar ways, the music either feels like it's too much of a ripoff from the previous games, or it's just trying really weirdly to be new, and it's confusingly tying in the main themes and building a theme and a vibe that's not really reminiscent of what Star Fox is, the magic that Star Fox usually captures. And at this point, not even Star Fox fans can agree on what they want next. They're like, well, the sequels were great, they were nice, they had a new direction. Other people are like, but they're not really Star Fox, they just either rehash too much or do too much weird different stuff. Like, how hard is it to make a sequel that's in the same vein as the original trilogy? In my opinion, I thought Assault had the best attempt at being a sequel just because it was mostly like space opera-esque. You had Arwings and whatnot. It had a very good soundtrack. It was based off the original series, but it also expanded upon it in different ways. It had a really nice mood. But other people feel like Star Fox shouldn't be going into May of Halo Mass Effect. The original point of the Star Fox crew is supposed to be caricatures of the dev team of Star Fox 1. It's supposed to be a way to show new hardware and be experimental and be fun in the process. And so, as such, Star Fox to Nintendo has been a series meant to test the boundaries of its console hardware and experiment it while having a fun time with gameplay. So, whenever they've tried to take the franchise and make it really serious like their other series, Zelda or Metroid, or be more in the vein of Halo or Mass Effect, it's fallen flat because that's not what the series is really meant to do. That's why Remember the Tunes from the original trilogy, the better ones, the more experimental ones, the one with the soundtrack that more catches our attention, as they were also wacky and zany and heroic and experimental while also resonating with the vibe of the franchise. And in the end, whether it be through our childhood nostalgia of playing the games, or just memories from playing these characters and listening to their music in Smash Bros., the legacy of Star Fox will live on in its music. And that is the Lylat legacy. So yeah, thank you really much. Before I go to questions, I just want to do a few shout-outs. Thanks to the Star Fox Online community with a bunch of different opinions that I've been able to go through and look through for opinions on this panel. Also, going to plug a few panels real quick. I'm going to be doing another music theory deconstruction on Final Fantasy stuff with a few other guys at 5:30. We'll be looking at Final Fantasy 7, 13, 15, cool stuff, 5:30. It's called Ultima if you're looking for it on the program. It's going to be a Square Enix versus Bethesda panel at 7 o'clock. We're going to look at the music of Western versus Eastern RPGs with a couple members of my Rochester Institute of Technology Gamer Symphony Orchestra E-board members. They're going to be doing some of that stuff. And then at 8:30 is going to be a Way of the Wind Waker conducting workshop where you guys will get to learn how to conduct stuff while I'll be playing in the orchestra that they'll be teaching with. So, fun, we'll be playing cool music. It'll be great. And yeah, make sure to subscribe to DS Music, hit that bell, smash the like button. Yes, and pumping out piano videos every Friday, except today because panel, oops. So yeah, I'll have some time for questions and whatnot, if anyone has any, or if anyone just wants me to play a thing on piano. I mean, yeah, I did think. I mean, I did mention I thought Assault was a really good way to expand upon the franchise, but it was just done in a really half-baked way. A lot of it was the new gameplay was not really good. The story wasn't good. It wasn't really resonating with the vibe of Star Fox. So I would go along with that. Something where you have some new enemies. You get more play instead of having a linear story progression. You can do something like Starlink does and have like an open world aspect where you can go to different planets and like do missions there, kind of like Star Fox Command did, along with having a story that can actually like expand upon the franchise. Maybe have some darker roots, but in the end have it be heroic and upbeat, and not just something you paste together at the last moment, as some of these sequel things have seemed to be. Oh, I did forget to do one thing before I started the panel. Holy crap. Okay, let me just play a thing real quick. I was gonna do that at the beginning, but we had piano issues, so it's fine. It's fine. Anybody else? Oh yeah, remind me.
I was just saying, like, when you were mentioning the heroic force of this, and I was going to say, Star Trek, and just you mentioned space stuff.
Yeah, because it's used a lot in like Star Wars and Metroid, and there was one other thing I forgot to mention. I'll see if I can remember it, but yeah, a lot of different space opera stuff uses that interval in order to. I forgot what the Star Trek main theme sounds like. I haven't watched Star Trek in a long time though, so. Yeah, definitely. A lot of Star Fox originally was supposed to pay homage to like Thunderbirds, which was this puppet space fighter show back in the days, and it was. But yeah, this was a lot of Miyamoto's inspiration for a franchise, whereas these series that you've seen as a kid and listened to the music of. So yeah, that's a thing. Anyone else? Well, favorite tracks. All right, so as I said, Heroes of Old, great stuff. If you have a spare choir, well, you can speak music. Sector Omega from Star Fox Zero, as it's the track that plays when you're shooting through space debris at like light speed, and this music's really going fast. You can hear it in Smash Ultimate. They included it as part of their Star Fox Zero compilation, and it just really gets the vibe going. I don't think I have it in this presentation, but that's really nice. And part of the third one. I think Eladard's starting to grow on me. I can probably play Eladard that we're still here. It's really nice, got the synthy sound, and it's also reminiscent a bit of a Cornair and stuff. And you can hear there's a perfect rhythm force going on in the bass line and the melody line. It's got this nice chord section here. Nice jazz chords. It's pretty good. 100% certified banger. Surprised I didn't remix it for Smash Ultimate. Yeah. So think those. Anyway, I mean, I think this panel's all set for now. It's about 12:30. So if you have any other questions, feel free to come up. But thank you all for coming. Yeah, enjoy the rest of MAGFest.